like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Work.
Okay, thank you,
There we
Bill,
go.
for reminding me. All right, maintaining Memoir momentum, first session of 2026. Woohoo! And this year, we're going to study excerpts of memoirs. As I said, Memoirs of a Geisha was the #1 international bestseller. And even though it's not a memoir, it's written like a memoir. Virginia was very disappointed because she thought, it was a memoir. And when she found out it was fiction, it was like she was absolutely like irate even that they would call it Memoirs of a Geisha, and it's not. But anyway, it also spent over 1 year in the New York Times bestseller list. So I think it has something to offer us. And the section I've chosen is just random. It's a section that challenges me to pick out the elements of a scene. So we're going to work hard together on that. So we'll start with that one. I'll pull it up on the screen. And do I have a volunteer to read it?
Sure.
Bill. Okay. All right, Bill, just a sec. I'll make sure that is that readable for you? And remember, you can go to the three dots above where I'm sharing the screen and you can size it and put it on your screen the way you want to, too.
Well, just so you know, it isn't up yet, but I'm sure it's coming. It says it's on it. There it is. And I don't have the three dots anywhere, just so you're
Okay,
clear.
no, just do you go up to the very top of the Zoom screen, the Zoom toolbar,
Yep.
and do you see where you can go back to meeting and view Rusty's screen? And beside Rusty's screen, there's three little dots, three little horizontal dots.
On the tab.
Nope.
No, you don't see them. I want to send a picture of something like that. Okay, so anyway, but are you seeing it? Is it big enough for you to read? Let's go
Oh,
there.
hang on. I had to, yeah. So I now have found it.
Okay. Woo! Babe
That's
Bill.
very good. I had to click on the very top bar, and then it came up underneath it
Oh, okay, you
in
might
its
have
own
your
line.
Zoom
It says,
set. You might have your Zoom set to not show the toolbars all the time. I have it set to show the toolbars all the time. So
oh, I see. Okay.
that might be
Well,
it.
I don't know anything about that, but I have now found those
Okay.
three dots. But I don't need it.
Okay.
This is large enough, but I have to get rid of all this stuff. What the hell is that?
Okay. You get rid of all that stuff. So you're just going to read until like the first three paragraphs there, late one morning and ending with she had summoned me.
The last paragraph I have on my page is I haven't had occasion to mention the
Yeah,
Baron.
no, you're not. You're going to stop. You're going to stop before that.
The Baron's back in town.
Yeah, you're going to stop at that
Before
one.
that.
You're going to start late. No, he can read that one. Start with late one morning and then end with the paragraph the Baron is back in town. Okay.
Okay. And you wanted me to do this in Czechoslovakian? How do you want me to do this?
I'll rewind the whole thing. Go ahead.
Okay. Late one morning, I returned from the school to find a note telling me to bring my makeup and rush to Mamiha's apartment. When I arrived, Mr. Ichoda who was a dresser just like Mr. Biku, was in the back room tying Mamiha's obi before a full-length mirror. Hurry up and put on your makeup, Mamiha said to me. I've laid a kimono out for you in the other room. Mamiha's apartment was enormous by the standards of Jian. In addition to her main room, which measured 6 tatami mats in area, she had two other smaller rooms, a dressing area that doubled as a maid's room, and a room in which she slept. There, in her bedroom, was a freshly made up futon with a complete kimono ensemble on top of it that her maid had laid out for me. I was puzzled by the futon. The sheets certainly weren't the ones Mamiha had slept in the night before, for they were as smooth as fresh snow. I wondered about it while changing into the cotton dressing robe I'd brought. When I went to begin applying my makeup, Mamiha told me why she had summoned me. The Baron is back in town, she said. He'll be coming here for lunch. I want him to meet you.
All right. So
Did I say her name right? Mamiha?
I don't know. I just pronounce it phonetically as well. All right. So I'm going to leave this up on the screen. I'm going to try to see more of you over here.
Bill, it's actually Mameha.
Mame,
Mameha. Ma, ma,
M-E-H, like Mameha?
Oh,
MEH is like me. Me.
Meh.
Mameha.
Okay. Oh,
Mameha.
like when meh.
yeah.
Meh.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
great.
Oh, okay.
Mameha.
Thank you, Marianne. All right.
That's
So
great.
what do we notice about this scene?
Well, it's pretty intimate.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It also
it
tells about a large apartment and that there's something that is going to take place by
Mm-hmm.
the gown that's on the futon.
Yeah. How many of you
it's a
have
staggering
read?
amount of information for such a
Yeah.
short segment. It's a
Yeah.
staggering amount of information. You get
Yeah.
so
Right.
Yeah,
much.
it's setting the scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he never once said they were well off, but it's pretty obvious that with extra rooms and a maid and all that kind of, it's a lot of implied
Yeah.
um, big. There's more there than just a room.
Right. So, what can we do in our writing when we are writing memoir that can, this I think is a great example. Like you said, a staggering amount of information, Marianne. I love that you said that because we want to give the information that is going to bring people into the scene. And so I'm there with the curiosity of what's going to happen with this young girl who's being trained to be a geisha. She's puzzled. She's not, we know, like if you know the story, if you know about geishas, we know that she has no idea at all that geishas are, to put it bluntly and inappropriately and totally incorrect, are like prostitutes in Japan, what other people would judgmentally say that. So let's just use that for our conversation purpose. And so she she's puzzled that Mameha hasn't possibly slept. And now she's being dressed again. And the Baron is coming to town, which is her Dana. And Dana is like their keepers or their what some people here call their sugar daddy. So somebody that supports them
Wow.
and the men would choose their favorite geisha. And so she, the I in here, that they haven't even named her, have they? They haven't named her in this section. Like, of course, we know she's the one that's being trained, and her, from my memory, it was her sister that went to another kind of a life or whatever. They were separated, and she was chosen for her beauty. So she's being trained and groomed for this. So there is the timestamp, late one morning. There is a couple of settings, like I returned from school to find a note telling me to bring my makeup and rush. So there's urgency. So there's a tone of urgency to this. There's the impact. He'll be coming here for lunch. I want him to meet you. So because of that, then this happened. So because of the note that she has to go, she has to get her makeup on, she has to dress in this beautiful new kimono. And none of this is cheap. They put a lot of money, if I remember correctly, they put a lot of money into training a geisha. A lot of money
Yes.
training a geisha. Um, so one of the reasons, another reason why I wanted to look at this together is also as I've been writing 500 words a day this month every day and discovering once again all over again how easy it is to write 500 words a day. How easy it is. Like this morning I thought I'm not going to have time to do it today, and I thought, okay, I got to be over and showering at 8:45. I got to get the wood before 8:45. So I got to do this. I got to do this. Okay, so I've got to write 500 words. I better start now at 7:30, and I was done before 8 type thing. And not saying that it's fantastic writing, but the more that I do this, the more that I've been studying the scene and talking a scene and structure and elements with all of you, it's making its way in. I'm remembering to concentrate in facial expressions. I'm remembering to concentrate on a bit of dialogue, adding a bit of dialogue in. I'm remembering to put the interior thinking in. So where's the interior thinking in this scene? She's got it, right? She's wondered about it while changing. She is observing. So even her observations are interior thinking.
Well, and even if you go back to the very first line, finding a note telling me to bring my makeup and rush to Mameha's apartment.
Mhm.
She didn't live there, and she was some distance away.
Yeah.
It's all like there's so much implied
Hmm.
that gives you context. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it gives you context.
I
So
just find that I just sorry, Rusty. I just find that yeah, but this is so condensed that you miss what her first thought would have been when she got told that. Like I kind of feel like, yes, we get a sort of what she's seeing and assembling in her mind
Yeah.
as she goes through this. But when you get summoned by somebody, don't
Hmm.
you ever wonder why you've been summoned and your makeup?
Yes.
I mean, there
Yes.
must have been something going on internally, and yet it's not present.
Ah, okay. So for you, that's missing.
Having
That's
read
good.
the book,
Hmm.
Is this at the
having
beginning
read
of the
the
book?
book,
It-
yes, because I read it. I have to say, even though it wasn't a memoir, he did a really good job. Um, given, I know be, before of this, you didn't question anything you were ordered to do. Nothing.
No.
You did what you were asked to do, or you suffered. So when you got a note saying the bare minimum, you did what it said.
Hmm.
Yeah, but
That's
even
that's
so,
the whole
Virginia, you
gist of the
still
book.
got feelings. I mean, you still would have that internal dialogue, no matter whether you got an order to do something. I mean, I used to do that when I was working in all those different jobs. I still had my internal dialogue. And what I'm saying is, it's such a short piece, we don't get to see if she ever had any internal dialogue with this or any internal emotions that kind of just popped up. Like she's got to know that she's being trained for this, but she must have some sort of, I don't know about you, but I'd have a back and forth dialogue with myself about what was happening.
That's
Well,
why you're not a geisha girl. You're way too inquisitive.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
I
yeah.
for sure.
Go ahead,
I
Marianne.
neither read the book nor saw the movie. So I'm wondering if this is in the beginning of the book,
It's
and if
early.
she's a young girl who thinks
Yes.
maybe she's being prepared to be a wife.
Yeah.
Yes.
She could be. And Mameha is a rival of one of the successful geishas in the house where this girl is being trained. I don't remember her name right now. I don't remember her name. But she is being trained in a house where the head geishas are torturous. Like Virginia remembers, they're torturous if there's backtalk, if there's any stepping out of line type thing. And the geisha that is kind of the reigning all-important geisha knows at some level that this young one is going to surpass her. And so she is cruel. And Mameha is the rival, is a successful geisha on her own, but is the rival to this one. And so she's taking this girl under her wing to make sure that she's going to get a good Dana, to make sure that she's going to be seen by the elite Danas, not just anyone that, will get her. And there's a lot of politics in this story, a lot of politics.
Oh.
But
So this poor
focusing
girl's
on
going to get beat when she gets home.
I don't think she there's other things that happen. I almost want to read it again. It was good. Like Virginia said, it was written really well. Um, so what you said, Teresa, there is, if I remember some of that she does when she has times by herself. But right now, there's a rush, there's a sense of urgency. And I think that's going to be like in one scene, I'll be very graphic right now because I trust you all and love you all. Who else is here that I can't see on the screen right now? There's Joanna. Okay, good. There's Dorothy. Yeah, and all of us are here. Is that in the scene that I wrote this morning, I wrote about how desperate I was to have the palindrome go and start skipping when he knew at some level that the ground under his feet of our solid relationship of him having me 24/7 was shifting. And he was nervous and anxious, and I needed him to go skip rope so I could whisper into the phone to have Virginia come and get me because I was going to pack my bag while that skipping rope slapped the floor, and I was not coming back. I was not coming back to that house. And that would be only the second night I was apart from him in 9 years. The only other night was when I was in surgery. I had surgery for breast cancer. So there is an urgency in that scene, and it goes fast. And I do believe there's times when she does have a lot of internal thinking. Caroline, did you read the book? Virginia, I can't hear you. Virginia, do you remember that I'm pretty sure she thought internally a lot of places like let
I haven't read the book, but I assume because this is just one small segment
yeah.
that we're trying to show that this is fast, and so when
Yeah.
things are happening that quickly, you almost don't you just quell your thoughts and focus on
Yeah. Here's
what's
another
going
scene that
Yeah.
on.
I'll read
I,
later on when she's actually out with the men in the. Were you going to say something, Virginia?
yeah, I remember there being internal dialogue when she was first sent there. She was still a teenager or actually almost a child.
Almost, yes.
And there was a lot of internal dialogue,
Mhm.
and wanting to go home and like lonely and all kinds of things like that. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, you're
Mhm.
missing a lot of context when you
Right.
just read this one scene. But
Yeah. There's
I
still
I didn't miss the internal dialogue at all
no.
because you've got the action that when
Mm-hmm.
she's getting there and you've got
Mm-hmm.
and all that sort of stuff, and then you have Maria told me why she had summoned me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's to me it just fits. So I guess
Yeah.
I guess sometimes for me, sometimes when you put too much in, like internal dialogue and stuff like that,
Mhm.
you don't give other people the opportunity to live the story.
Right. Matt.
Like
Mm-hmm. Good
for me,
point.
there's enough information that she went because she was summoned, and then this is what she saw, and then she's told, "This is why I called you here."
Yeah. Here's another section, about 70 pages or so later. That evening, I knelt in the hallway of the Chinky, feeling that my whole life had led me to this moment. I listened to the sounds of muffled laughter, wondering if one of the voices was the chairman's, who ends up being her Donna, by the way. And when I opened the door and saw him there at the head of the table and Nobu with his back to me, well, I was so captivated by the chairman's smile, though it was really only the residue of laughter from a moment earlier, that I had to keep myself from smiling back at him. I greeted Mameha first, and then the few other geisha in the room, and finally the 6 or 7 men. When I arose from my knees, I went straight to Nobu, as Mameha expected me to do. I must have knelt closer to him than I realized, however, because he immediately slammed his sake cup onto the table in annoyance and shifted a little distance away from me. I apologized, but he paid me no attention, and Mameha only frowned. I spent the rest of the time feeling out of sorts. Later, as we were leaving together, Mameha said to me, Nobu-san is easily annoyed. Be more careful not to irritate him in the future. I'm sorry, ma'am. Apparently he isn't as fond of me as you thought. Oh, he's fond of you. If he didn't like your company, you'd have left the party in tears. Sometimes his temperament seems as gentle as a sack of gravel, but he's a kind man in his way, as you'll discover. So there's a lot of interior thinking there, and then there's the dialogue that gives us more. So there's a time and a place for internal dialogue, and there's a time and a place to set the tone and the setting, the scene, and some urgency. And I think these two scenes kind of do that. And the book was riveting. Virginia like can attest to that. Any other thoughts on this one
yeah, if I
before we move
read
on?
the whole damn thing and didn't sleep, it was good.
Yes, I know that is the way you read
Did you
books.
hear that?
You don't sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So this is the urologist that I worked with, how to get ahead, and she is very, very, very graphic. It is a how-to memoir, like Memoir Plus, in that she's using her experience, her skill, and her expertise to write a book for couples to know their genitalia, to put it bluntly. And she's got great pictures in it. Yes. She had a sketch artist do a lot of them. And then she also did medical diagrams. Um, but she's got the trauma chapter. And so she talks in here, creating trust is the single most important precursor to great sexual experiences. You don't even have to love your partner to enjoy pleasure. Love helps, but trust makes it possible for you to let go and enjoy the fullest of the pleasures that your body is made to experience. If you trust your partner, you can become a passive recipient of the pleasure your partner is going to give you. How do you create trust? You create trust with good communication, communication without fear. You trust that your partner will care about your well-being and not hurt you physically or emotionally. Trust is the most important asset in any relationship. It should be valued and taken seriously. Once lost, it's hard to regain. We need to feel safe. And I helped her a lot with this chapter because she'd never been traumatized, but I did have sexual trauma. So it was really healing to work with her on this book. It doesn't have much to offer us in the way of scene and setting, but I wanted to just bring it up as a memoir how-to. And so what she says here, and then she does go into the freezing, the flashbacks, the imprinting, the cultural imprinting. And it was a fabulous book to work with her on. She came to me and she said, I want to do this. And in one sentence, I went, can I make a book out of this? And I said, yeah, well, let's like make chapter titles. So we made 33 chapter titles and then we started filling them in. And I think we ended up with 20. How many chapter titles did we end up with? Medical disclaimer. Even though she's a doctor, she has to have a medical disclaimer. Yeah, she distilled it down to 12 chapters because she went on to work then with this big cost person to do TV and stuff. Like she had the money to do that, but I'm missing some of the chapters that I really thought were great. She was going to do one also on how you really need to think about things before you do a transgender thing because there's this many steps to the operation and there's no going back. And I thought that was a very important chapter, given that there's so much of that going on. Okay. Sharon Batalla, Where I Live Now. She was born rurally, but she spent most of her life living in an urban setting. And this professor that she was mildly involved in, who had a cute little sports car, and her son went driving out to visit this ranch near East End, Saskatchewan. And it had been raining and storming. And if anyone knows anything about Saskatchewan gumbo, if you stop driving in that, your car's not going anywhere. That gumbo fills up the wheel wells, fills up everything. Your tire's just not turning. And it's difficult to walk in too. And nonetheless, a sports car. So this was her first chance meeting Peter, who became her husband. And she surprised herself, and everyone in her family thought they weren't going to make it at all because he's never lived in the city. She'd never lived in the country. And now all of a sudden, she's on miles and miles and miles of prairie land that barely gets any snow in the winter, that just blows away, and barely gets rain in the summer. It's a harsh, harsh land. And they were married 33 years and lived there until he died. So the part that I chose there in her book is not so much about them, but she's talking about the transition she has to do after her husband dies, and she's a widow and she can't run a ranch by herself. And it has been in the Butala family for a long time, so she doesn't feel like she ever owned it. But she's now 68, and she had asked her mother a question when her mother was dying. And she totally forgot about this question that she'd asked her mother until she is now a widow herself and wondering what to do with the rest of her life. So I think you can see it here. And volunteer to read this part, and then you can stop. Who's going to volunteer can stop here at the gentle part down here, because then somebody else can carry on there while I get ready to flip the page to the next page. So Caroline, you're a great orator. Do you want to? Oh, Marianne had her hand up. Marianne and then Caroline. Okay, Marianne.
Okay.
Marianne, if I
Okay.
would. So the question she asked, I guess the page before, shakily down toward her chest, in a voice I had to lean closer to hear, I'd asked her, what is the best part of your life? And this is while her mother was dying on her deathbed. As emphatically as she could manage, her mother said, now. Okay, Marianne, take over.
Am I stopping at when suddenly I remembered?
You're stopping down here at gentle, gentle, down at the bottom of the page, the last two lines.
Okay.
Okay.
If I was staggered by this, and I must have been, there was so much more to think about just then. The palliative nurse's daily visit, questioning the doctor about this or that, medication, management, that sort of thing. Our own memories, our own lives on hold for this terrible week, our own children coming and going, friends and relatives phoning. Strangely, I don't remember thinking about what she said again until I decided years later to write this book. I was well into my research, reading books about aging, writing reams and reams that would all hit the paper shredder or the recycling bin, when suddenly I remembered. With growing awe and surprise, I remembered that she had chosen her old age as the best time of her life, had chosen it even while she was about to die, when surely we at last encounter the truth, when we no longer have any reason to prevaricate. With our father dead, all of us grown and scattered across the western provinces, she was living alone in a small house in an older tree-lined district of the city, growing beautiful flowers in her small backyard, reading huge amounts of not too demanding literature. She especially liked historical fiction. This very smart woman chose a simple existence, even turning down a marriage offer from an old family friend without seeming to give it the smallest consideration, as if she'd had enough of real life. Watching television, knitting and embroidering, visiting occasionally with friends, relatives from elsewhere dropping in as they passed through town, her social life reduced to family gatherings with her children, their spouses, and her grandchildren if they could be rounded up to attend. She was alone a lot, especially in winter, but she never complained. She was calm and exuded an air of peacefulness, no longer seemed discontented or angry, but ruminated about her past as she knitted or hooked a small rug. Gentleness had entered her demeanor, and most interesting of all,
Okay, and Caroline can take over as soon as I flip the page. This page, here we go. Was the way. Caroline, unmute.
And most interesting of all was the way, over those last few years, she had become beautiful. I see this only now from a perspective of 27 years without her, but I think all of this might have been a kind of happiness. How odd it was that I didn't recall this moment. That such a time in her life might be the best was inconceivable to me then, and in a mixture of bafflement and disbelief, I filed her reply to my question somewhere deep, wishing she had never said it. I still wanted to believe that life, anybody's life, held some kind of dramatic payoff. But the older I get, the more I wonder at the way the human memory works. Everything is there, stored away, waiting for the right moment to come rushing back into consciousness. Now I was old and widowed myself, in a time when the inescapable realization that I would never again be young had arrived, when I was invisible on the street and in stores and cafes. I, who had spent my midlife, well over 30 years, in the midst of vast acres of wild grass, was now living the truncated life of the urban condo dweller alone. This, I thought, this was my mother's best time of her life? When she was alone? Stranded in the alien kingdom of the city, loneliness and fear alternating with exhilaration and hopefulness, I pondered this mystery.
All right, so this is most definitely memoir. First word, first kind of feeling. What does this give you? Marianne?
unbridled introspection.
Yeah, yeah. Just
There's your internal dialogue, Teresa. Lots of it.
Actually, if you want to know, this is what I'm going through now.
yeah, yeah. I was thinking of
Mhm.
you when I chose this, Teresa. Um,
It's an interesting, yeah, there's a retrospection in this. So I just spent 3 months on my back and I
mhm.
wouldn't trade one day.
No.
And if you'd have told me that when I was 20, I'd have said I'll slash my wrists first
Yeah.
because I had stuff to do, people to see, places to go, money to make. And I'm like, it's a whole different
Mhm.
play. My mom was the same way. She said that the last part of her life was the best part of her life. And then she was she had lots of cancer and there was a bunch of stuff. I would never have thought that. So I think it forces us when we see these kinds of things, certainly does me, it forces me to, again, the conversation that Marianne just said, retrospective. It forces me to look at my own life in that moment and go, is that the case? Am I missing something when I look at old folks?
Mhm.
I think it's really good. I think it's really
Yeah.
good.
Later on, she talks about how in the rural areas, old people are looked at differently, are not so invisible, are still given huge respect, whereas in urban settings, it's very different. She makes these observations. She's a very observant writer, and it's very internal. And so far, a lot of it is very internal. And after reading junk fiction that my sister keeps on plying my way, our sister keeps on plying our way for a while, I have to kind of wean myself away from that and get my brain and my groove back into this. And I love memoir. Is this a memoir that you would read? I want to know that because as I am thinking that some of me has been spoiled by the junk fiction lately, is this a memoir that would pull you in?
I think it would for me
Yes.
because right now, where I'm sitting in life
Mm-hmm.
is very much like this. I call mine a blowout because it happened so instantaneously all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a gradual thing for me. Like I went from one stage of my life
Mm-hmm.
to being still busy with a grandchild for 2 months. But then all of a sudden, when I come back home and there was just me here, it was like everything blew out. And now I had to deal with what the repercussions were of everything
Mm-hmm.
internally that I
Mm-hmm.
had been living through and not dealing with at the time.
So, Teresa, then thinking about all of that, how would you put that on the page, even if it was just for you? Is this kind of writing the kind of writing that you would see yourself doing? And it doesn't mean that you're going to write it for anyone else, but I think there's a value because I think that she is dealing with widowhood. You're dealing with now becoming a motherless daughter. That is fresh and new to you.
Well,
So, and
well,
you've
actually,
dealt
I'm
with
dealing with a
widowhood.
lot more than that because,
Yeah.
but yes, actually, I did write to this morning before we even started this. I was doing my morning pages
Yes.
1 minute, and I had music on in the background, and all of a sudden, it was a total shift. It was like somebody had shut the door on one and opened the door on the other, and I sat and wrote about what my beliefs are, how it fits in with what I've lived through, and how the emotions and all of my life are tied up in this. We're tied up in this tight bundle that was held so tight because the last person I was caregiving was still alive.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I don't have that. So now
Nope.
that's all opening up very slowly, like a
Yeah.
rosebud. You see each
Yeah.
petal unfold.
And you have a unique way of looking at that. I want to see what Caroline said about this. So just a second. Teresa, so you have a unique look on this from your own inside interiority that you can write your own perspective on what it's like to deal with the aftermath of all of a sudden significant people in your life are no longer here. They've passed on, and you now have this phase of your life. And so here, looking back at how this is written, and stranded in the alien kingdom of the city, because she's just spent 33 years in the prairie with a man that she loved deeply, that people thought it would never last. And she fell in love not with just him, but the prairie and walking in the grass and learning how to ride a horse and everything that went along with that and the people. And so now she's once again an alien in the kingdom of the city. Great language, loneliness and fear, feeling, alternating with exhilaration and hopefulness. She ponders this mystery. So there's the sticky bit or the because of that, then this happened. And so because of that, because she asked her mother the question, because she's now remembered it when she's about, she's a widow like her mother. She's not in the last years of her life like her mother. But she is, I forget how old her mother was when her mother died. I think I knew that, but I don't. I should actually kept the book here. I put it back in my bed for tonight. That she is going to ponder this. So there's the sticky bit. We want to see, and again, memoir is about transformation. Do we expect her to transform in front of us with this last couple of lines?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Teresa, you don't, but Caroline, you do. I expect her to transform.
Oh,
Anyone else? I
Well,
expect to
I
see the
really,
transformation.
Mhm. But the really, I love the line. Everything is there stored away, waiting for the right moment to come
Mm,
rushing consciousness. Now I was old and widowed myself in a time when the escapable realization that I would never be young, again be young, had arrived when I was invisible. There is so much in these couple of lines,
hmm
and that already reveals a kind of transformation and acceptance
Yes.
that and yet she goes back to this and shows that she's in transition, even
Mhm.
though she's made some realizations based on what her mother said and where she is now in life, and that there's still that it has to gel, it has to fall into place, but she's aware of where she's headed, where she is and where she's headed. I like it.
Yeah. Bill?
I think there's a piece that we don't talk about much. Maybe you have. I've been away for a couple months, but one of the my mom passed in 1986. She was 69 years old. I got a look at the end of a life, and in that year, by the way, 14 people in my life passed. My
Wow.
best couple best friends, a bunch of relatives. It was a big deal. It was a big year. And it gave me a different perspective on living, not dying. And that living conversation, and I can go back to the memoir of a geisha. So I coached a man who was married to a Japanese woman. Her name was Miyuki, and she was a geisha girl.
Hmm.
And she spent 2 years at the beginning of her training being stripped naked, put on a table, and they served sushi off her body. She wasn't a hooker. She wasn't. She was. That wasn't part of her life.
Hmm.
Did she end up having sex with people for a bunch of money? Yes. But we, in our narrow minded, and I will be as respectful as I can around this, we have a very narrow view. I certainly have a narrow view of how I see someone, and it influences what I'll even hear from them or about them. And so there's a way, again, with our language, I've got First Nations people, and I've got and there's a wonderful life that they have that's very different than my white overlay. They don't start meetings on time. They wait for the sun to come up or whatever. And I can get very pissed about that back when I was 25. Start on time. And then they said, well, the sun isn't up yet. And it's like, blow my head up. When I look at the Inuit and their diets and their 18 names for snow, and I have snow, that's it. And so my narrow minded, narrow focused vision or way of seeing the world is really quite constipated when I think about other languages and the names for things. And so when we look at using the phrase, which everybody did around Mayuki as well, oh, so you were a hooker, you were a prostitute. And she went, you don't spend 2 years of your life stretched out naked on a sushi table having people take sushi off you and pour uh, sauce and stuff and dip that. That's not what hookers do.
Yeah.
And of course, we look at that and go, well, no, they don't. They just climb on a bed, 20 minutes, they're done, and it's $200, whatever the numbers are. And there's a way that for me, my mom's death gave me an opening to both the ending of life and how do I richly live into my life today, right now. And so that really changed. And in the last 3 months, laying flat on my back, I had a way different way to see the world. And certainly I have slowed down. There is no question about it. I don't have this urgency that I got to get something done, especially my chores, because I didn't do chores for 3 months. And I
hmm
think there's a way that when we look through that very distorted lens or very narrow focused lens of my own life, my own way, because I can only look at a life through the life I've lived. It's hard to see through other people's lenses. Because when I looked at again the whole geisha conversation, she was baffled by stuff. I don't know what her background story. I've read the book, by the way, and there is she was really baffled, but she was stunned because she was really young.
Yeah.
She had no filter in the truest sense. She was little, young.
Yeah.
So she would see stuff for the first time. Hard to do that. And there's so many writers that talk about this. Can I look at it through beginner's eyes? Because if I could, I will see it differently than through my 76-year-old eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to go back to beginner's eyes. But yeah, so I think there's that influence that I would have to just even read somebody's text is shaping the text in a way
Yes,
that
it
is a
is.
bit surprising.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done.
For sure. So, Caroline, what makes you think that you would come to this book and read it? What draws you in?
Um, I'm curious to see her transformation. For
Mm-hmm.
one thing, it's what she's describing is is very different from my experience because as an older, I mean, since I left my husband, my life has begun again.
Mm-hmm.
And I am happier than I've ever been in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I turned 65 the year I left him. And and I am not, and I live in a big city, and I am more visible now than I've ever been. So that part, the way the everyone talks about being old and being invisible, and I guess it just depends whether how one approaches it.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious as to whether she'll find her way of integrating in a city where, I mean, it may seem alien, but cities are full of communities and incredible opportunity to open up and explore and become visible.
I totally agree with you. And I think she is
Mm.
going to become visible. She's just going to find her way. She's still wallowing in the grief, and that could be
Mhm.
grief for people. I think there are some people, I see Marianne. I think there are some people that recover from grief quicker. Like when Virginia and I both read Walking After Midnight, um, and it was a woman that her husband was beaten to death, and she was involved with the justice system. She did amazing things. But anyway, she moved on in her life quite quickly, where other people might criticize that. But Virginia and I pondered about what she did to feel it and go on with it. So anyway, her grief and her memoir is really amazing of how she dealt with it. Sharon Battal is very different. Your life, of course, is different in that you left and you became happy and more visible and stuff. And I think she's going to, because she is a writer, she
I,
is going to get involved in the community. And so you get to watch that
mhm.
transformation for sure. I'll keep
Yeah,
you posted.
I definitely had to deal with a lot of grief. I
Yeah,
mean, and
sure.
and grief doesn't go away. I've been
No,
thinking about it a lot
no.
uh, lately. I mean, I've been thinking about how we just grow bigger. If we
Yeah.
can grow bigger,
Hmm.
the grief in comparison is not overwhelming.
Hmm.
It's there. It's still there.
Yeah.
I don't think. Well,
No.
I mean, for me, that it goes
No,
away.
no, it
It's
doesn't. It
just
just
one of those.
numbs, it dulls, but it can still hit you
Mhm.
unawares. So also after Marianne, I want to go back and look at this first page and then this page again and look at how many scenes there are in this, what she did. So Marianne, your comment, go ahead.
I what the page I this all resonates with me, especially the passages that I read, and I would like to read this book. What is the name?
Where I Live Now, there's the author's name at the
Oh,
top,
that's
Sharon
the
Batala, and Where I Live Now
okay.
is the name of the book.
I was thinking that was a chapter title. Okay.
Yeah, no, no, that's the name of the book.
Where I
And
live now.
so
Yeah.
I think that the way that she writes about this, about the way that she writes about Peter's illness, the way that she's so observant about this, and that you and Teresa have been caregivers, is an example of how you might be writing your own story, observant of you, Marianne, being the youngest and having all your siblings aging and the dementia that's there, and Teresa being a caregiver for so many years, there is going to be your internal thoughts that are going to make your books unique. And like no one can do what you do the way you do it. Well, no one can write your story the way that you're going to write it. And let's look back at this. And Dorothy, your comment, and then we're gonna like look at how many scenes there are. And for me, I think she has paragraphs that are too long. I'm going to talk about that too. Dorothy, go ahead. What's your
Oh, well, I guess when, I kind of heard it, I thought, like I'm looking at doing the aging in place, and so much it's focused on all the things you have to do and remember. And then, lately I've thought, holy shit, this is me and I'm aged and I'm still in place. And so so this is kind of about the person. And I think sometimes when we're aging in place, we, when I was thinking before, and now I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute, there's the person in here. And that you have to think about the person. And that maybe that's where I should start writing it from, is that perspective as opposed to the mechanism to get here.
Brilliant,
That makes
Dorothy. Brilliant. Right. Because this is what she's doing. It is her memoir. It is termed a memoir. It's termed as a powerful memoir by the a Canadian magazine. I actually should just go get it off my bed, right? So Dorothy, yes, yes, do that right from the perspective. Well, exactly. Say that again, how you said that. You want to write it from the perspective of the.
Well, I guess right now I sort of feel like I'm aging and I'm
Mhm.
also in place.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, holy shit, here I am, and how do I get those things to work?
Hmm.
And I found even though you have the list, it's not necessarily that easy to get them to work, but still.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
So,
that's what I liked about it. And
yeah.
I could also see, like, when my husband knew that he didn't have that long, or that our life was going to change drastically, and in those last few months, and he was open to talking about it, not to saying he was saying, but our life was going to drastically change,
Mhm.
and it kind of, like, I'm having a brain fart. But with his mother, can't remember your name.
You're allowed, Dorothy. You're allowed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
okay.
love.
But like with his mother when she was passing, and when I went through the same thing with Lionel, and how sort of precious that time was together,
Hmm.
and how comfortable it was with moving on.
Yeah, and I also think that it's very different for people who have come to terms or come to peace with their life because Virginia can tell how our who was it that told you that Uncle Charlie did not die easily? He did not. He
No.
was angry at death. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
he had more living to do.
Hmm. So here I'm also thinking, Brenda Lynn, even though you wouldn't use these lines specifically, but with growing on surprise, you might remember. And so like great ways to introduce lines, right? And this is why we can copy something and then make it our own later. With growing on surprise, I realized I was pregnant with a child with a man that wasn't capable of being the father I needed him to be. Like there are ways that you can use what other memoir writers do to take yourself into your own scene, and then you want to paint how you're enter your thinking, and you do this a lot with Haley Dawn. It's like you wanted a daughter, you wanted another child, you wanted to be pregnant again, and your internal thinking will need to also show then the fear and anxiety that pushes you to take action and plan your great escape when he says things like that there's not going to be another I can't remember um Russ's exact words about how there wasn't going to be another child, but you knew. And then it was great dialogue with your stepdaughter said, why do you let him treat you like shit? There's great dialogue there. we need to remember to do all the things that I think Sharon Batalla is doing here so very well. That's subtle. She's observing. She's using strong verbs. She is using um, feelings. She's using the interaction that she had with her mother. So at the beginning of this page here that Marianne read, I had to lean closer to hear, she said as emphatically as she could manage now. So the scene is her mother's bed that her mother is in the process of dying. Scene, that's the setting, and the scene, and the dialogue of her asking this question. And because of that question, then the rest of this happens. Because then she goes in, like, if I was staggered by this, then she goes into just the day-to-day stuff that takes her out of that moment, partly because maybe she didn't want to remember it, but she also is thinking that maybe it's all this other stuff that took her away. I love what Virginia pointed out in the last page of this chapter about every memory waits for its time. Virginia, I've got a hand up that way that you tentatively do. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm looking at the line just in that first paragraph, that whole paragraph on this page. Strangely, I don't remember. And I decided years later to write this book. I was well into my research, reading books about aging, writing reams and reams that all hit the paper shredder when suddenly I remembered. So she's really setting the scene here. I was well into my research. I wasn't just going to write this book. I was looking at other ways that people had done things. She was doing research, reading books about aging and writing, which wasn't going to see the light of day. So that's really fascinating what she's doing there because for me, she's setting an internal scene that I really connect with. And an external one too. Yes, she was doing research, but since suddenly she remembered, and with the remembering, she starts to take a turn in the writing, and it's showing up here. Like you said, it was subtle, and it is, you know. And then she goes on to say, this smart woman chose a simple existence, even turning down a marriage offer. This is after when she's widowed, an old friend, without seeming to give it the smallest consideration, as if she'd had enough of real life. And that she was watching television, knitting, embroidering, and visiting occasionally friends, and. But really encapsulated in that, she's saying that her mother was content. She was calm and exuded an air of peacefulness. And that's to be longed for, like how many of us have gone through our earlier life when there wasn't peacefulness, when we were discontented and even angry, and we were ruminating about all kinds of stuff, and now she's just doing life her way. And I understand, I can see the pull in that. I want to read the whole damn book so I know if she gets there too, like her mother did.
It's a very small book. You'd probably read it in half a night and still get some sleep.
Okay, I'll get a little sleep.
Yeah, for Virginia, you brought up something here about the discontent and the content. And this is also in Memoir, we want to have the forces of opposition. What is opposing us from making the transition? Her own beliefs about old age are opposing her from making the transition to finding a place of content. Does that make sense?
And I would say that the end of the first paragraph, which Virginia mentioned, it's like her writing. It was like she had to clear away all the stuff she had jammed in there, not to think about what her mother had said. So it was clearing it away, and finally that little conversation could come up in her psyche. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So,
it's almost like she sets the whole theme for the book here. Like, I don't know, what page number is this? I can't see
this
it.
is 30, I think it's a 36. Yeah, it's 36, 37.
Oh, so it's early in the book.
Yeah,
and
early in the book.
So it's setting this theme for what she writes. I want to read the whole book and see if I'm right.
Okay, so Virginia wants to read it to see if she's right. Caroline wants to read it to see the transformation. Joanna, does this interest you at all? And Bill wants to read it. Does this interest you at all? And do you see any merit to studying this kind of memoir writing for some of your own interiority? Because you have a lot of interiority. You have a lot of internal, your mind is going, 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 going.
Yeah, especially compared to books that have very vivid scenes that I like when I think about it, I'm like, I don't remember any details and I could not describe a scene, but I can describe my internal world a lot better. So this definitely resonates more. And it's interesting just even coming up against the topics of grief, and and the way that she remembers how her mom like her mom's sort of winter. My yeah, my mom did not die peacefully or grace or gracefully. um she yeah, so so there's that also affects the grief part of it, right? Because you don't get those nice conversations, the heartwarming talks. There was a lot of anger and just giving up. Like by the end there, she just like took up smoking again and was drinking like at 9 in the morning and just like was like whatever, fuck it. Um,
Mhm.
and so that then makes grief that much more challenging because you're dealing with sort of the anger of feeling like you wanted some closure and um yeah, so I'd be really interested in reading this book and how and I can completely resonate with this idea of like turning down a marriage. Marriage is hard. It's hard work. Like once your husband dies, like if you want to be alone and knit and spend your your winter evenings by yourself, I can completely resonate with that. So anyway.
Oh yeah, you and Virginia and the Caroline and me are on the same page, Teresa, too, right now. Brenda Lynn's got Lovey, so we're happy for her. Bill's got
Yeah, I
Esther,
love
we're
my
happy.
husband, but
Yeah,
it's yeah, I love my husband, but it's freaking hard work. So.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Joanna, before I get to you, Teresa, because I want to make sure that we get to everybody here to have some comments about this. So I think we've looked at this enough. Now we can just like discuss about what, this maybe has taught each of us. So Joanna, I really see that I'm really grateful and glad that you can see yourself writing your interior thinking and not have to be about the scenes. There's not much here about the scene at all. I mean, there's the scene in that, the mother's bed when the mother is ill. There's the scene that she's in the city. And that, she the bit of the scene about the kids all scattered across the western provinces. She was living in a small house in a tree-lined district of the city. So there's scene, there's setting, there's timestamps. I'm going to stop the share, which is over here, this button. So you
Okay,
don't
but
have
when
to
she
write
sets the
detail.
scene,
Mhm. Go ahead, Virginia.
when
One.
she sets the scene, it all arises out of her internal dialogue.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I connect with what Joanna is saying
yeah,
because I write like Joanna too, and like this woman is writing. We get to know about her mother and where she lived and where she's now living and all that, but it's all pulled together out of her internal dialogue that she's sharing with us. And that's my way of writing scene
yeah.
too.
And her
Mhm.
observations.
And
Go ahead, Joanna. And I'm going to grab the book. Keep on talking. I can hear you.
when we did the exercise with metaphors and I was saying that I found that was sort of my window into finding detail, in starting with the emotion first and using metaphor to sort of tease out some of the details and same with like what she wrote in there that like that she kept writing and writing things that would end up in the shredder and then finally things she remembered. I think that happens to me too, is just like when I can try to remember back to the feelings, then sometimes the details come out. Not always, but
Hmm. But I don't think you
Well,
need to have them all just right. And we'll get to Teresa. Bill, go ahead then, Teresa. Bill?
a distinction that I would make there, Joanna, I would rather hear about your internal landscapes than the color of the freaking duvet that
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
laying on. I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. I want to know what's actually going on and how that felt. This is where Brenda Lynn's stuff is so gripping. You hear this horrible thing where they drive over one of their kids in a thing, in a whatever you call those, a,
Boat
a thing
trailer.
for a car.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I get what happened to her and how that felt when she's really unhappy about not trying to figure. So, is this my last kid? What does that look? I want to know what that feels like. I don't care that you got a brand new van. And I think there's a way that we get lost. Certainly, I have gotten lost when I keep reading all these details, and they're great. I mean, I'm not suggesting for a moment that some of those great stories that are told about all these things that are happening in somebody's life, I want to know what's going on inside you. What did that feel like? When I hung out with my mom for the last 6 months of her life and took care of her, those stories, and I was foolish enough not to record them or do any of that stuff, but those stories, I found out stuff about my mom I never knew. And I don't remember some of them. I just know what an amazing last 6 months. I have that. I'm golden. And so I think there's a place that internal landscape is way more important to be conveying to people if, in fact, you want to tell them a little bit about your life or what's going on. It's way better than, gee, the windows were frosted over, which is great to know, but who really gives a shit? I want to know for me, what's inside you that you can share with me. And then I've got a relationship with you that I would never have had just because you told me about your wonderful car and 3 feet of snow.
Yeah. My descriptive line is my eyes glazed over like the frosted window. That's my description. Like, who the hell
Oh,
cares about the
yes.
frosted window unless it's speaking about something I'm feeling?
Yeah.
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 So there's
And
a
when you
place
can
for
write in a book, you can write in a book and go, want, 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 want feelings. I want to know. So
Oh
that's
yes. Well, my niece is in the construction industry, so she has a mouth like a sailor, and she has t-shirts that, sailors might blush to wear, but she says, "Fuck my one feeling." Type thing. But
Yeah.
feelings, and when
Metaphor.
feelings are paired with observation, I think that pulls us in. And Joanna, you have an introspective way of looking at things. I was so moved by your motherhood piece of like, I don't want to bounce back. I want to be stronger. I want to be better. It was so powerful. And I think that was one of the first things I said to Virginia. Did you love Joanna's piece? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, we did. So you write well. Start trusting it and keep on borrowing our belief as long as you're not. Keep on borrowing our belief as long as you're not believing yourself. But trust your voice. It is unique. It is awesome. Keep writing the way you're writing and stop telling yourself you need to write some other way. Got it?
Thank you.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right. The full title of her book, Where I Live
Oh,
Now, A Journey Through Love and Loss to Healing and Hope. And it shows the prairie house there, the prairie house, nothing else around. There's no trees in that area of the world. No trees. No trees. When I did follow the bone hunters to do a story in farmers' fossils and climate change, being a prairie girl that grew up with trees, I was starved for trees after 3 days in that area of the world. Starved. Like, oh my goodness, give me trees. Oh, okay. Anyway, Teresa, you had some thoughts. Do you still hold on to them? Do you got them there? And then I want to hear.
I was just going to say, Joanna, a lot of times when you're trying to force yourself to think of something or remember how things felt, sit down with a piece of music and listen
Oh,
and let it just come because it releases that determination to connect. It
mm,
lets you do it through free flow. And I found that this morning when I was writing about something that by putting music on, and it's funny how idiosyncrasies work when you put the music on and you just let it go to whatever it's going to go to next, how they line up to line up with you at one time were trying to figure out how to put something together, the music will bring you that because it's flowing. Pick good, good even music, and I'll tell you, you sit and write. I sat and wrote for an hour and a half this morning, just with music.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Teresa, for that. I'm fighting with myself about how it would be so good to just have 8-track cassettes back or cassette tapes or to plug in a CD into a CD player that worked without having to look at technology, because I think that as soon as I look at the phone to set music on, to play the music, to write my morning pages, my brain has already been interrupted by technology. I don't want to look at this before I write for anything. And yet I love the idea of writing to music. So I need to create some way of doing that, because I think it's brilliant what you just said.
Rusty, you need a CD player that has
Yeah.
3 or 4 CDs in it. Then you
That's
just
right.
put the CD player on and let it go.
Yeah.
No,
Either
vinyl is
that or
back.
What,
Vinyl
Joanne?
is back.
Pardon?
Vinyl is back. My
Vinyl
daughter
is
Yeah,
back.
Yeah, I
has
know.
you need a son putting on records nonstop. I tell ya.
either that or
That
Google.
are
Oh,
not my
she's
choice, but hey, they're good.
And
built
please
in. Look at
remember,
that. Carolyn's got it.
please remember that 100 years ago, this was technology. So, let's cut ourselves
Yeah,
some slack.
Yeah, it was it.
yeah.
Okay, so Brenda Lynn, we haven't
And
heard much from you. So Brenda Lynn, what does Sharon Botela's writing and the fiction writing memoirs Geisha, what does that bring up in your mind about how you're writing your writing? Now and also you're writing the how-to with the children on the spectrum, you're writing Your Great Escape. What's coming up for you today?
I need to just for me to keep getting back into my flow because I've stopped that form of writing and I have so much now that I need to get it into the computer and things like that. But I loved the examples you used today. I would definitely read the last one. I don't think I'd read the geisha one, but definitely read Sharon Butala's book. So I look for that. And her descriptions, that internal dialogue was quite good. Some long paragraphs though, and run-on sentences, but
Yeah.
that's just my catching my editing eye, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that paragraphs, that there's too much, and when they need to be separated more, like each thought or something. So maybe that's, yeah. But anyway, I'm glad other people feel that way, because I thought, well, she's a good writer and everybody loves her, but these paragraphs are long. Oh my goodness. Um, okay, thank you, Brendolyn. So yeah, pick up her book. It's fabulous. The library will have it for sure, because she's a Canadian writer that's won lots of awards. What it says in the back is, when Sharon Botela's husband Peter died unexpectedly, she found herself with no place to call home. Torn by grief, she fled the ranch lands of southwest Saskatchewan and moved to the city, leaving behind almost everything she owned. She took with her a lifetime of experience and a limitless well of memory of a marriage that everybody said would not last, but did, and of an isolated yet intensely beautiful life lived in nature. One of her other books is The Perfection of a Morning. It gives me shivers to think about that book. It was beautiful to read, The Perfection of a Morning. And the other one that's, I think it's called Coyote in the title. Where is it? Uh, the Perfection of the Morning and Apprenticeship to Nature in Nature. And then the Coyote's Morning Cry, Meditation and Dreams from a Life in Nature. Her observant ability to bring you into the nature, that the setting that she's in, are just beautiful. Out of this hard-won new existence emerges a compelling and warm-hearted memoir that offers solace and wisdom to those who have experienced grief and loss. Where I Live Now is a revelatory book that understands the many homes women must build for themselves in a lifetime. So, yeah. Okay.
I'll pick
So,
it up. I'll look it up at the library.
yeah, for sure. Bill, knowing that you're
Yes.
writing more in a very different, like, Bill, you stand in the genre of your own. What has this brought up for you in regards to your writing?
I think there's a requirement because this is not an instruction thing, or I'm trying to get a bunch of coaching clients, or I'm trying to sell my second book. It's not that. I need to talk about the fact that the driving force in our lives is our intuition. That's it. There is nothing else. Even when we're having this conversation, our intuition is couched in the way that we even make assessments of other things. And so I think there's a place that's the driving force of my writing. And it's not going to have as much memoirish stuff in it. And it's morphed a little. Certainly the last 3 months flat on my back has made me look much more vigilantly at the requirement for getting in touch with our intuition. Mm-hmm. And most of us have muffled that in some way, covered it with a blanket, put it behind a box, whatever. And it's the driving force in all our lives.
Yes.
And if we can get that so that it's foreground for us in everything we do, we have a whole different world. Mm-hmm. So that's been a whole big deal for me, because I did not write or paint for 3 months. That's never happened. I've always been doing something.
Right.
So it was, slowed it down. And I think the clarity that's come out of that has been amazing. Mm-hmm. Amazing. And nobody would have told me that. And if you'd have told me that at 25, I'd have probably died because I couldn't slow down to this extent.
Yeah,
but
no kidding.
It's been a remarkable reconnection, because I've always trusted my intuition, but not to the extent that I am now. It has to lead. And that's, I believe that will stop us from listening to asshole politicians and letting the shit go on in our world that is truly remarkably bad. Mm-hmm. I come from a very strong Christian family, and I was going to show you something here. I don't know whether it can.
Well, you're
So at our at Christmas we have this goofy gift exchange, white elephant, whatever people call it. One of the kids of my son, remember, very strong. I'm not going to read this out. Can you see that?
I'm not a gynecologist, but I know. I'm not a gynecologist, but I know a cunt when I see one.
Yes. That T-shirt came out in our goofy gift exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah. And got traded. I think there was only 14 people in the room. Got traded 7 times.
Oh, 7 people wanted it. 7 people stole it?
Yes. Yeah. And no one spoke the word out loud.
Yeah.
It was just right there. And there is a place in how we my son and his wife were mortified that one of their kids actually had that T-shirt and gave it to the. So, and I think there's a way that was, it sparked a hilarious conversation about how we're so constipated around our thoughts and around our going on. There's amazing, amazing things. And I think there's a place that we must convey that in our writing. We must convey that it's my intuition, and these are important realms of, and it goes back to the Joanna conversation about the internal landscapes, because they're not spoken a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important. That's why we like some of that writing that just grabs us by the throat.
Yes.
And hangs on.
And I think there's a place for that interior writing in your calling people to call upon their intuition as you introduce the chapters, to use your internal thinking and observing of how this way of critical thinking has disappeared. How can I bring it back? How, when I've lost it, how did I get it back? Like, you bring in your own way of saying that this was a battle for me too, because then people will be able to do the journey with you to the end where your intuition and, the 3 months flat on your back, that's probably going to be in your conclusion, and that how this enforced stillness did more for me than any meditation classes, than any guru, than anything ever could have. I think there's a reason.
And there's an exquisite distinction that I think is really important, and that's that when we slow down, like, what does the scripture say? Be still and know that I am God. You can't do it when you're going 40 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour. You can't do it. But there's also a big distinction that we have lost the connection to our character. So I have integrity. So how do I tell you? Oh, Rusty, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think my integrity is? You can't do that. But I need integrity to be in the relationship.
Yeah.
And so when we start looking at it, oh, but it's not something that I can measure and then say, because that's what the whole corporate world is driven by. I got to be able to measure everything. Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
Because if I know that, what comes first, trust or trustworthiness?
Mm-hmm.
And we keep talking about this whole phrase about, oh, so I need to be able to trust people and trust has to be earned. It isn't. Trust is granted. It's that simple. It's granted. And then you can screw me over. Okay, are you going to do it again? Probably not. So the context becomes everything is risky.
Yeah.
How do I assess the risk, in essence, and deal with somebody who's telling me that they're a good guy, but I'm really clear they're not? What do I do with that?
Yeah.
And team building and all, it's like, anyway, it tossed the whole thing up, because I was pretty sure that we were getting close to where we could say, push that off to Tina and say, okay, I think we're kind of good to go, because we got the title page and we've got the cover, and we're nowhere near, because I got to go back to this, because without it being threaded through that intuitive context, which, by the way, can I say to somebody, what's your intuition on a scale of 1 to 10?
No.
You can't do that.
No.
You either got it or you don't. Now what? So that's a long answer. Sorry about that.
A long answer for sure. Caroline?
Oh, I just wanted to say that one of the hardest parts of, I think, being an artist is to recognize the fallow periods, the need for fallow periods, and that they are where everything can consolidate and root itself deeply, and that seems to be what the 3 months was.
Yeah, and letting go of my ego. I thought I was managing my ego really well. No, I mean, from an art point of view, I did this piece. I do custom pieces, and I did this piece, and I got really excited about this because I got a bunch of feathers, different kinds of feathers. I was making an angel for this woman, and I put this whole angel thing together and brought Esther out to look at it, and she kind of just, I mean, she is very gracious, but she rolled her eyes, and I'm like, that's not the response I wanted. I wanted, oh, that's so beautiful. I took it. I mean, it's 4 feet by, no, it's 5 feet by 6 feet. It's a big piece. And I scraped all the feathers off and started again. I'd spent 3 weeks doing it.
Oh my.
And the piece that I've got now, it's one of the most profound pieces I've ever painted, but I had to give it up.
Yeah.
And don't for 1 second think that was easy.
No.
I had a lot of stuff going on. I spent 2 days being very quiet.
Okay, you pout.
Anyway.
Okay, we're done with you, Bill, now.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
What you just
Go
what
ahead.
Bill what you just said made me think of just a phrase from the Old Testament. When all the kings became the king of Israel, they were assigned to read the law in an undertone. And it just occurred to me that if you read in an undertone, you are quietening your mind and you're connecting with your intuition. I thought, wow, I never thought of that before. It's just when I was listening to you, it just came. So I wanted to share.
Awesome. So who have I not?
I think reading memoir is like that too.
Yeah.
Reading memoir is like that too. It's like I read it in an undertone. It's not a fiction book to just race through and enjoy the plot they design.
No.
This is somebody's life.
Yeah, there's several parts where I'll read twice and I'll read again, and where I stop, I read over stuff too. So Marianne, I don't think we've really asked you the question here too. What has this morning's observations of these different writings given to you in regards to what you want to write about food and family and travel? Where are you at?
I am loving this format that you're doing this morning. I'm finding it very helpful and thought-provoking. I'm getting so much out of it, and I'm seeing where I could go and improve my writing using these techniques. Like people always tell me that I write so descriptively and it's vivid and it jumps off the page, but I think there is so much more richness to add. And I wrote down a bunch of words, facial expression, sounds, aromas, tone of voice, colors, internal dialogue, reflection. Yeah, I want to apply what I've learned here this morning to my writing.
Thank you for saying that because, yes, your writing is vivid. Yes, it pops off the page. Yes, it pulls people in. Will it pull people in for the long haul? Will it pull people in for the long haul without the interior thinking, without the dialogue, without the transforming or the introspection or the retrospection, I should make a word, retrospective, that we need to bring to it so that people can see us as we're moving through these phases or these incidents, these events that happen in our lives? And can we
Right.
make them feel? Because an opera singer, how many of you tried to sing at a funeral if you're crying, or when you're sad, if you tried to sing? Have you? Have you tried to sing? It's difficult to sing when you're crying. Very difficult. Think of an opera singer. She has to sing with so much emotion. She can make the audience cry, but she can't cry because she wouldn't be able to have that volume or hold those notes. I mean, I tried to sing. That was the only thing that made marriage really great was the singing and the harmony. And after my son was born with all those postpartum emotions going through, I couldn't sing. I could not sing like one whole note. And I'm always remembering that moment and this analogy of an opera singer. As writers, it is our job to make people feel what we felt without telling them we felt that way, without telling them how to feel. We will not want to insult their intelligence. So when I am angry at someone, and this is where I think we can start to write with grace, where we can still have some of the emotions that happened at a certain event. When I was so mad at the palindrome that he wanted me to stay home, he wanted me to go for a walk with him and not go visit my two sisters because they were dangerous. They were going to trigger me. They were going to pull me into flashbacks. They were going to do all this stuff or whatever. And are you sure it's safe to be with them? I should go with you, if you're really insisting on going. And, well, why can't I go with you? Well, Bruce is going to be there. Well, Bruce doesn't hover, asshole. But can I say that in my memoir? I can't because I need you to feel all the things I felt inside when I was trying to find a way out of that relationship to be me again, whole, and not have to live 24/7 because somebody else thought that that was the only way to have a healthy relationship. Can I tell you that I thought it was dysfunctional? I want you to see the dysfunction. I want you to feel it for me. Does this make sense? So when we bring all of our vivid way of writing details and colors and things like Teresa and Marianne are talking about, yes, but we need the introspection and the way of observing that Sharon Batala brings on the page. So I don't want to do this every session with, multiple books, but I do want to bring a different memoir each time or some sample of writing that can do things really, really well. And I want you all to start bringing a scene that you have written, whether it's rough or not, so that we can look at it with you and we can say, what about this? Or what were you feeling at this moment? Or what were the sounds like? Like he would make little sounds when he didn't want people. 2 times in 9 years we had people in. I'm social. I like cooking for people. I like feeding people. 2 times in 9 years. And that was painful enough for me to not do it again because he would get kind of like, and he would look away and he wouldn't joke. He wouldn't offer any of his wit or humor that I would get in private. He'd get really stiff. ramrod, and his energy would push people out. Now, I'm trying to write that without saying he was an asshole. It's tough. It's really tough. Caroline,
Why? Why don't you want to say that? Is he still
Well,
alive?
Yeah, he's still alive.
Are you afraid he'll see this?
No, it's not fear. I do have some angst about it because he like never wanted to be written about. He never wanted like he had a half hour of routines that he would stretch. I never saw what he did in his stretching time. And going to Qigong was absolutely painful for him. That was the last thing that we did for my treatment therapy after cancer that was out in the world with people, and I loved it and stuff. And he hated it being there. He expected himself to be there because he couldn't let me go by myself because he believed 24/7 was really important. And during the cancer treatment, he would do anything that would raise my white blood cells because an infected hangnail took my white blood cells down to nothing and put me in the hospital. Wow. So, anyway, at the end of that Qigong weekend, when I'm still bouncing, but I'm pulled down when we go home at the end of that weekend because his energy is down here so grumpy that he had to move his body in front of other people. He had to be in a room with other people that were not even some of the people he'd come to accept when I dragged him out for walks with friends. That was the only way I could have friends in my life was go out for walks, go to their place or something, and then, rush home type thing. He was so grumpy that night, and I begged, cajoled, whined just to get out of the house and moving because I could not sit there for another hour or two with that. And on that walk, he said, when we get out of the city and off the grid, we're not giving our forwarding address to anyone. Do you think the pumpkin shell slammed shut at that moment on me and woke me up? It certainly did. So can I write that exactly that way without telling you how to feel? Will you feel it for me? This is what we want to do with our memoir. We want Bill's people to feel the lack, the pain of not being in touch with their intuition. And I think, Bill, you can do that by sharing the moments of your own life when it was robbed or thwarted or interrupted by your own drive for power or money or business or ego type thing. You can do that. We want people to feel their own pain at being duped at going to another workshop and finding out that the high only lasts as long as, they do the work, but without the group or without the continuity, it doesn't stick.
Well, and I also think there's a distinction, certainly for me. I don't think I can tell anybody anything. I've discovered that having 2 children and 5 grandchildren. You can't tell them anything.
No.
But I can create an environment that invites them to think
Yes.
about what I just said.
Yes.
Because in that invitation, I don't have, by the way, I heard a better phrase about an asshole. You say, he is an ass with hole. And then you haven't sworn, you haven't done any, he is an ass with hole. And it's kind of bumpy, but every time I've used it now, people laugh out loud because you get it. But you only have to describe what you're going through and what it feels like to you, and that will leak onto people. That's the coolest part about an invitation. All you're trying to do is just invite people to see this. That's all.
Yeah.
And you don't have to name them. You don't have to do that stuff that some writers do. But I think there's a really powerful way of creating that invitation for us to see, wow, that would have been hard to live in.
Yeah. And so that is my hope and my intent, to write from my interiority with the observation of everything around, but let people form their own opinions. So that is our maintaining memoir momentum, everyone. And what I want you to bring is I want you to bring scenes so that we can take turns looking at your scenes.
You still haven't addressed the long paragraph thing that Marianne's concerned about, because I'm in Marianne's camp. Why is it so important to not have, I think some books shouldn't even have paragraphs, just write them, because that's how my life feels sometimes. It feels like, oh, walk through with my hair on fire.
Well,
So
you know what? There's a poet,
Marianne
Stuart.
and Bill.
There's a poet, Stuart, can't remember his last name or if that's his last name, but he wrote 14-line poems and each line was one word, 14 words, 14 lines. And he wrote a whole book like that. And I tried it and I thought, oh, it doesn't work. I tried it. It doesn't work. I don't know how I did it, but it was really great.
Tried reading it or writing it?
No, I tried writing
Did
poetry like that and I just couldn't get it to work, but his did. I'll have to find it. It's in my storage because I haven't got all the space for books, but I'll find it when I get them unpacked. All right, Caroline, you were laughing a little bit ago. Do you remember what you're laughing about? I was wanting to know. We got sidetracked. When I was talking about the pumpkin shell
It's
or the
I like that image.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. No, I relate very much to your experiences
Yeah.
since mine were similar.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
everyone, thank you for humoring me with looking at Memoirs of a Geisha, where I live now. I'm really grateful to hear that, the book intrigues a lot of you. And I'm going to dig out Anne Linnaeus' Deepwater Passage because it was a memoir that gripped me in a way that Sharon Batala makes me work. But Deepwater Passage just, I tore through it in ways. And it was still a memoir and it was still thoughtful, but observant. But she had more of a compelling read to it. So, and if any of you have read memoirs that pull at you, that then I want you to bring samples too, and we can put the pictures, you can send pictures, whatever, to me, and that because I'm not the only one here that can bring content for us to look at. But mostly the memoir sessions are going to either have looking at this, or they're going to have writing a scene right in class, or they're going to have you bringing a scene. So if nobody brings a scene, then we'll probably write one and we're going to look at it in that moment. Somebody will volunteer and I will keep track of who's volunteered so that you all get a turn. Okay, we're done. We're complete for today.